Mr. Midnight.
My name is Emma, and when I was 8 years old, my family left the chaos of the city for a quiet Midwest town, where ancient oak trees cast long, twisted shadows over silent streets. The air was thick with the scent of damp earth, and kids chased fireflies in the fading summer light, their laughter swallowed by the stillness. Our new home was a decaying two-story Victorian house at the end of a lonely cul-de-sac, its white paint peeling like dead skin, the wraparound porch sagging underfoot, groaning with every step. My dad called it a fixer-upper, a fresh start after his new job, but the moment we stepped inside, a chill sank into my bones, as if the house itself was breathing, watching. The high ceilings loomed like a cavern, swallowing sound, and the narrow hallways twisted like a maze, leading to dark corners where shadows seemed to linger too long. My bedroom, perched on the second floor, had a single window staring into the backyard, where a gnarled, skeletal tree stood alone, its branches clawing at the moonlight. A small closet with a sliding door sat in the corner, its handle glinting like an unblinking eye in the dim light. That first night, I lay in bed, the wind howling outside, rattling the windowpane like desperate fingers scratching to get in. I told myself it was just an old house, creaky and worn, nothing more. But then a shadow, sharp, unnatural, flashed across the window, like someone darted past outside. My heart slammed against my ribs, a frantic drumbeat. I crept to the window, my breath fogging the glass, my hands trembling. The backyard was empty, just that gnarled tree swaying in the wind, its branches twisting like they were reaching for me. I didn't sleep that night, my eyes glued to the window, my body tense, waiting for that shadow to return, certain that something was out there, watching, waiting. Weeks passed, but the house grew darker, colder, more alive. I'd be in my room, scribbling homework under the flicker of a bedside lamp, its light casting jagged shadows on the walls, when a faint tapping echoed from the window, click, 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 like fingernails scraping glass, deliberate and slow. The gnarled tree was too far to blame, its branches swaying uselessly in the distance, mocking my fear. I'd peer out, heart racing, my reflection pale in the glass, but the backyard was always empty, cloaked in a darkness that seemed to pulse with intent. One night, I woke to a soft creak, the closet door sliding open an inch, revealing a sliver of pitch black inside that seemed to swallow the moonlight. I froze, my breath caught in my throat, my pulse thundering in my ears. In the dim light, I swore I saw a pale hand, bony and twisted, curled around the door's edge, pulling it slowly, as if savoring my fear. My scream lodged in my chest, choked by terror. I yanked the blanket over my head, trembling, praying for dawn to chase the shadows away. When morning came, the closet door was shut tight, as if it had never moved, but the air felt heavy, wrong. I told my little brother, Sam, only 5, with his messy hair and wide, nervous eyes that darted to every corner. He whispered that he'd heard a woman's voice under his bed at night, low and raspy, saying, "Stay still, little one. Don't move." My mom laughed it off, her voice tight, blaming the house's quirks, but Sam's trembling hands and pale face told me he wasn't lying. I started checking his room at night, shining my flashlight under his bed, its beam slicing through the darkness, but I found nothing, just dust and shadows that seemed to shift when I looked away, as if the house was playing tricks. The nights grew worse, the house more menacing. The tapping on my window became relentless, a rhythmic torment, click, 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 sometimes joined by faint scratches on the walls, like claws dragging across plaster, slow and deliberate, as if something was carving its presence into the house. My bedroom door, which I locked every night with shaking hands, would be ajar by morning, the hallway beyond swallowed in darkness, the single bulb flickering like a dying heartbeat. One evening, Sam bolted into my room, tears streaming down his pale face, sobbing that the woman under his bed had grabbed his ankle, her fingers cold as ice, her grip tight and unyielding, pulling him toward the darkness. I yanked him into my bed, our hearts pounding in sync as we listened to the house creak and groan, its walls whispering secrets we couldn't decipher. The next morning, I found scratches on my floor near the closet, thin, jagged lines carved deep into the wood, fresh and glinting in the sunlight, as if something had clawed its way out in the night. I showed Mom, my voice trembling, but she snapped that it was probably me dragging something heavy, her eyes avoiding mine, her hands unsteady. We didn't own anything heavy enough. I bought a flashlight, keeping it under my pillow, its being my only defense against the dark. Every night, I checked the closet, its empty shelves mocking my fear, but the feeling of eyes on me never faded, like the house itself was staring, its walls alive with malice, its shadows holding secrets I wasn't meant to know. One stormy afternoon, I found Sam in the attic, a place we were forbidden to enter. The door was always locked, but that day, it stood ajar, the air inside thick with dust and a sour, metallic stench that made my stomach churn. Sam was crouched in the corner, staring at an old, cracked mirror leaning against the wall, its surface clouded with age. He whispered that the woman was in it, her black eyes watching him, her lips moving without sound, forming his name. I grabbed his hand, my heart racing, and we ran, the attic door slamming shut behind us with a sound like a gunshot that echoed through the house. That night, the whispers began, faint, like a radio tune too low, coming from my closet, saying my name, Emma? Emma. I show my flashlight, my hands trembling, but the closet was empty, its shadows deeper than they should be, as if they were hiding something just out of sight. Sam said he heard it too, the woman's voice, now coming from his closet, telling him to come closer, little one, don't be afraid. We stopped sleeping alone, huddling together in my bed, jumping at every creak, every tap, every shadow that seemed to move when it shouldn't. The house felt like a predator, its walls closing in, its air heavy with the weight of something ancient and angry. Then came the night that broke us, a ferocious thunderstorm that shook the earth, the kind that makes you feel small and powerless. Rain lashed the roof, lightning splitting the sky, illuminating my room in jagged, blinding flashes that cast twisted shadows on the walls. I woke to the window rattling violently, like someone was wrenching it open with desperate, unnatural force. My flashlight trembled in my hands as I aimed it at the window, my breath shallow, my heart pounding like a drum. The lock was turning, slowly, impossibly, though it was bolted shut. The window slid open an inch, rain pouring through, soaking the floor, the cold air carrying a stench of decay. And there she was, a woman in a tattered white dress, her face gaunt and bone-white, her eyes black voids that swallowed the light, pulling at my soul. She floated outside my second-floor window, her long, stringy black hair whipping in the storm, untouched by gravity, her presence defying reality. A bony hand pressed against the glass, fingers splayed, claw-like, as her lips moved, forming my name in a silent, chilling whisper that seemed to echo inside my skull, cold and sharp like a blade. My scream tore through the room, raw and desperate, shattering the spell. She vanished as my parents burst in, their faces pale with terror, their eyes wide with something beyond fear. The window was locked, the backyard empty, the gnarled tree twisting in the wind like a mocking figure, its branches clawing at the sky. My dad swept the yard with his flashlight, finding nothing but mud and shadows, his hands shaking as he gripped the light. Mom called it a nightmare, her voice trembling, her hands clutching a rosary, but Sam was shaking, saying he'd seen her too, standing in his doorway, her black eyes fixed on him, whispering his name in that dry, raspy voice that lingered in the air. The next day, I wandered into the backyard, my heart heavy, my eyes scanning the shadows. Near the gnarled tree, I found something glinting in the mud, a tarnished locket, its clasp broken, half buried as if the earth had tried to swallow it. I pried it open, my fingers trembling, and inside was a faded photograph of a woman, her face pale, her eyes dark and hollow, just like the figure at my window. My breath caught, my blood running cold. I showed it to Mom, but she dropped it, her hands shaking, her voice sharp as she told me to throw it away, to never touch it again. I buried it back in the mud, my heart racing, feeling the ground itself was cursed, tainted by something ancient and cruel. After that night, my parents couldn't ignore us. Mom burned sage in every room, the smoke curling like ghosts, choking the air with its bitter scent. Dad checked every lock, his hands unsteady, his eyes scanning the shadows as if expecting to see her. They took us to a pastor, who prayed over the house, his voice trembling as he clutched his cross, his eyes darting to the corners. Things quieted for a few weeks, but the house never let us forget. I kept my curtains drawn, slept with a flashlight on, its beam a weak shield against the dark that seemed to breathe. Sam stopped talking about the woman, but I'd hear him at night, whimpering, "Go away, please," his voice barely a whisper, his small body trembling under the blanket. We moved out 2 years later when Dad's job took us to a new city, a place of bright lights and clean walls. The day we left, I looked back at the house, its windows like eyes watching us go, its porch groaning as if in farewell, its shadows lingering like a promise unfulfilled. Years later, I asked Mom if she'd ever felt anything in that house. She went quiet, her face pale, her hands twisting in her lap. Then she admitted she'd woken one night to a tall, pale figure in her doorway, its black eyes boring into her, its presence heavy with malice, like a weight pressing on her chest. She'd found scratches on her bedroom floor too, hidden under the rug, thin and jagged, like the ones in my room. She said she'd heard her name whispered in the dead of night, faint and dry, like leaves scraping stone. She never told us, afraid it would break us, afraid it would make the fear too real. Now, as an adult, I can't sleep through storms. The sound of rain brings it all back. The relentless tapping, the chilling whispers, the pale face at my window, those black eyes that seem to see through me. I check every lock, every corner, every shadow, half expecting to see her, floating, staring, her presence a cold weight in the air. Sometimes, in the dead of night, when the wind screams through the trees, I hear my name, faint, dry, like it's coming from just outside my window, waiting for me to look, waiting for me to let her in. And I know, deep in my bones, that she's still there, in that house, waiting for someone new to claim.